Okay. Move this down here. Recipes. You can come in a recipe editor that'll show you the recipes. This looks a little bit different than before because I gave you access to see everything. So here's the individual.
Huh?
Is it being recorded?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay.
I think.
Okay. So this is individual recipes. Some of them are report recipes. Just they're designated as report recipes. Some have the PC pump, PC vent. PR is a process recipe.
PC is for?
PC process chamber. Okay, you have setup recipes and sub recipes. So that's the abbreviation in front of it. For right now, we're going to look at, if we need to recreate our sample, we're going to look at the PC vent recipe. So you can come in here. Let me do an overall of this screen. So you can create new recipes, duplicate, delete recipes. You don't want to delete any recipes, I wouldn't recommend it. Some of the screens you might have where you can filter by signal or by category if you want to. So the interlocks are set up the same way. You only have a small amount of recipes, so you can see everything on the one screen. If you had maybe 100 or 200 recipes, maybe you would do filter via signal or category. So that's just your option here. You have you can have the ability to import and export recipes if you want to. You can run a recipe right from here if you wanted to versus here, or the recipe editor. Flatten recipe, don't worry about that. The preview step, I can come into the PC vent recipe, or I can just select it over here, and this gives the steps of the recipe. Also, whenever you come in the recipe monitor, if you want to show progress, this is what comes up here. Yeah. So you'll actually see this in real time. Recipe calls and called by. This is if you have sub-recipes in there. You won't really use it, but for example, the process recipe, process recipe, this has sub-recipes in it. So you might see something populated here. So on the columns you have the name, view recipe, you can click on it. You can hit edit disable or include and run it. Edit disable gives it, you have to, so if I go into this recipe, I would have to uncheck this before I could do any editing. So this just gives you a little bit of a safety step that somebody deliberately has to take action on to edit the recipe. You don't have to have this checked, but it's not a bad thing to have it checked if you don't want somebody to accidentally change it.
This is under category of process?
This is under recipe editor. These are all your recipes.
So,
Has nothing to do with these. This is a recipe editor. So as long as you have recipe editor in this column, you can get to here. This include and run list. A lot of these recipes you might not want to populate in your run recipe. This pop-up window. So anything that has an include and run list checkbox,
It'll find indicated in your
yes. Description of the recipe, you have a column here for that. Security levels, if you want to set up different security levels of what level somebody can access something, you could change it here. You can keep everything super user, or this is where you get into universities that have a lot of users. Maybe you don't want them to look at or mess with multiple levels of recipes.
Right.
So they can only see maybe their own recipes or peers. You limit the peer view. So that's what this security level comes down to. Owner, you can put what you want there. Category, you could set the category. And this automatically populates here. So on the recipe itself, this screen, you have a lot of the same operations, but they're in a different position. So you have the name here instead of being in a column. And if you wanted to put a description, you could put a description. You could set the category and the security level, and you could also, do I want to put do I want to disable the edit? Do I want it in a run list? Same things you could do on other screens, just different positions. This gives all your steps. So whenever we hit PC event, which we'll be hitting very shortly, the first step is it sets an abort recipe. The abort recipe assesses the abort PC event. So if something were to go astray, what do we want it to do? Then we put a pause step in here, which you can do saying, do you want the operator to do something? Do you want them to check something? So that's this pause step, which we'll see. Then the third step, it says, it asks if the pump is enabled. There's nothing in this column. Sometimes what's in this column matters. Notes, any notes that you want to put in a recipe, you can put under this note section. It doesn't impact the recipe at all. So sometimes whenever you're running a new recipe, you might want to put, check this step after running so many times over.
PC event. This is recipe for PC event.
Yes. That's,
And PC pump.
no. That's the category.
So right now.
Go back to return list. Yep. Click it again. These are all the recipes. If you want to see the recipe, you click on view recipe of that recipe. So if you click on that box right there, that'll take you to where we were at.
Yes. And I'm a little bit confused about PC vent and PC pump. What is this one?
Vent allows you to retrieve the sample. Pump puts it back under vacuum. So one brings it to atmosphere, other one pulls it back to vacuum. Which we'll cover PC pump, PC vent, and the processor. I don't have to go through every recipe, because once you understand the steps of those, you can understand the rest of the recipe. On the recipes coming into this column here, skip. If we wanted to skip steps, we could select skip. And that'll just, it just jumps to the next sequence. Configuration column, you're going to see different letters. You're going to see like GT. GT is a go-to. So it gives it 1 second, and if this is off, it automatically jumps to or goes to step 8. So the T part of it, there's time associated and it goes somewhere. Go-to steps you could have jump forward or you can have it looping. You could jump back. Some of it, you'll see steps that gets AT. So PC roughing valve closed, check on. It gives it 15 seconds to see if that is closed. If not, then this abort fail defaults to this 999. If this condition isn't met after 15 seconds, it runs an abort message. And the message that comes up here, that's the timeout message. If you don't have anything here, it won't generate something. This is what you want the user to see. So on the PC vent, if the pump is not enabled, then it jumps down to step 8. If it is, then it closes the roughing valve. Make sure the roughing valve is closed, then it waits 3 seconds. Then here,
It's not to the pop up. If the pump is not closed, the rubbing pump.
then if that condition isn't met in 15 seconds, then it runs the abort recipe.
Alright, then it will again. It's on here.
Yeah, remember yesterday when we had that red
Yeah.
bar? Yeah. And this sets the carrier, it sets the carrier gas flows, which the carrier gas is what vents this. On that chamber, you'll have a vent valve which vents up the chamber. The same carrier gas that's used for the process is also used for venting on here. Then it waits for up to 200 seconds for that back switch to come off. If it goes over 200 seconds, like if you didn't have any more argon gas, it'll run the abort recipe. And then they'll say fail to reach atmosphere or ATM within set time. Then it goes and sets the flow set point to 50, which dwells for 10 seconds, and at the end here, that's whenever you get that green bar. So PC vent will run that recipe. That's that pause step that's on here. That is right here. Okay, so we're on step 2. Step 2, the recipe's paused with the same thing that's in the column. Do you want the vent? So we're on pause. We could resume from pause. If you hit skip, it does the same thing. It goes to the next one. And these are all the steps to that recipe. It shows what step you're on, what the value is. Or you can look at recipe tree. Eventually you become so familiar with it, you don't even look at it anymore. Now, on here, you can see it's the 600 skims, which is an event recipe, which is right here. Got that 600. And also, the 250 and 250 here is these steps, 250, 250. So now we're at step 14, which we just hit. So now it's vented. So we can open that and retrieve that sample from yesterday.
Is that good now?
Just be careful you don't burn your fingers. So you know there's something on there.
Shall I put it?
Now, this is hot. You can put it down here, and this will actually act as a heat sink, not on the sticker. Just set it right there. Yep. A little bit farther over this way, so you can still close it.
This is heater, this is also heater.
This is a heater.
This is heater.
This is aluminum shrouding. This is stainless.
Yes.
This is an actual heater. This is a heater. This O-ring, after Kratos O-ring, if you close that, pump it down, and then you shut off all the heat, and then it's cool at ambient temperature, and you try to vent it, that O-ring's going to be sticky.
Yeah, I mean, so we have lower heater, upper heater,
PC lower,
PC lower,
PC upper,
exactly.
substrate. Substrate.
Thank you. I
Yep.
understood. So PC lower, PC upper, and PC substrate. And
Just substrate.
Yeah,
Yep.
sorry, yes. Yeah.
Yep, and then-
because I saw
So
the
this is
terms.
a kind of function happened on the substrate. So that kind of change.
Yeah, we had to wait for over here.
Right.
This isn't level, so it moved over a little bit. This color will change over time, depending on the thicker the oxide, the more color change you're going to get. So you have a little bit of deposition here and a little bit of deposition there. But you definitely have deposition on there.
Obviously, we can do that.
Yeah, now this will eventually get to a point you won't be able to, it'll change.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because maybe next time the wafer's over here, maybe next time it'll change in different colors.
So again, the condition materials coming from
The TMA comes out of this hole into that hole, and then there's a passage that brings it out of the air shower. So it drops down and then it disperses.
coming out from the TMA, going here and here.
Yes.
What are these two holes?
These two holes is the purge gas from the argon that you see on the top of the vacuum screen, the one that changed to 600. That's here, we use this in the cleaner. You have argon gas coming out here, and that leaks through these slots. That's what gives your laminar flow on the outside. So the precursor gas, you have some precursor plus carrier gas, so you have argon plus TMA coming through here, going up in, and then comes out of these holes and gets dispersed. You have other argon gas that comes around. It has a small barrier that helps keep the reactor clean. So this will change over time. So it's up to you. We can leave it as is, or we can put another sample in there.
That's fine, we can use this one.
Now I don't. Let me come over that way. I'm going to see something.
We have a glass. Sapphire glass.
We can use four, right?
No, don't have to.
Oh, great.
Well, you have the coating. It's very hard. You can see there's. If you had a new wafer, you'll be able to see.
The color is
Yeah, this has a very slight